And I always argued, I don't think cinemas are actually dangerously loud, and I don't think I listen too loud, and I don't think I cause hearing damage, and I don't think it causes hearing damage for anyone else. And they all of this basically forced me to reconsider my own views on this by looking at what the literature really said. And my initial read was, it's not dangerous. And the more I dug, the more I started to understand that there was more to the story than what I had been kind of looking at. And I think, a good lesson for me too, and for everybody, is that depending on how you read the science, you can probably draw any conclusion you want to. And in order to draw the right conclusion, you really have to make sure you've got all the facts. And I really didn't have all the facts when I was going into this. I just kept pointing to OSHA and these NIOSH standards when I was saying, well, 85 dBs, is what you can be exposed to for 8 hours and there's no hearing damage. Well, it turns out that isn't what that standard really said. It actually was specifically for work environments. And it was based on the idea that over the course of your entire work career, at the time that you retire, you have just enough hearing left to be able to understand speech. That doesn't actually mean you have no hearing damage. In fact, you could have lost about half of your total hearing in the course of that. And as long as you still have just enough to understand what somebody is saying to you, it's good enough. So how loud is too loud? Well, one of the things that I learned in doing my research is that there was a lot of mention of dosage, and I needed to try to understand dosage because I didn't get it. It talked about things like 85 dBs for 8 hours. And what I found out was actually it's not really about how much you're exposed to in any given moment. Certainly there are volume levels which are so loud that they can cause instantaneous hearing damage, but the likelihood that you'd be exposed to those is actually pretty low. However, what is more likely to cause this noise-induced hearing loss is actually your total daily dosage over the course of your life. And so you have to look at it in context. So if you go to a movie and the average movie is 85 dBs and there's peaks of 105 dBs, 115 in the bass, but the rest of your day you're sitting in like an anechoic chamber, that's probably never going to cause hearing damage for you. On the other hand, if the course of your day includes, for instance, working in a machine shop, that would be dangerously loud because your total dosage will be too high. So I did a little experiment. As I mentioned, somebody had contacted me to let me know that these Dolby Atmos theaters were too loud. And I really doubted it. I had actually argued with them that I suspected it wouldn't be an issue. So I decided I would give it a test. My family wanted to go and see Frozen 2. I've got a 5-year-old daughter. She was 4 at the time. And we thought it would be good to go check that movie out with her. She loves the Frozen series. I have on my phone a NIOSH app that is calibrated and accurate. And I have a little microphone I can plug into it, which I can also calibrate. I can and have calibrated the SPL on to be correct. And it can be used as a dose meter, basically, to measure not only the SPLs, but actually give you a whole report on it. And it ended up reaching about 7.5% of the dosage. So that in and of itself would be safe. It doesn't sound bad. So the conclusion here, if you looked at this based purely on that exposure, is it's not dangerous, but it is very loud. Except that you've got to take that in context. So I did another experiment. Yeah, I did another experiment. I wore a dosimeter for 24 hours to record actual SPL dosage for an entire day. So this was something where I was curious what my normal day is like, given that I like to watch movies quite a bit. Probably I'd say 3 to 5 days a week I'm in my theater watching a movie. I listen to music pretty much every day. I watched TV for 2 hours and the volume level was actually about 70 decibels, it appeared. I listened to music while I was working. That was about 75 decibels or so. I slept for about 8 hours, and actually it was reading kind of an ambient level of 55 decibels in my bedroom. And it turned out my daily dosage after all of this, including a movie played back at reference levels, was 129%. So I had almost 30% more noise than I was supposed to in a day. And this actually wasn't a very unusual day for me. So doing this every day basically is increasing my risk for noise-induced hearing loss by quite a bit. There were reasonable scenarios where you might go to like an F1 race or a Grand Prix or a drag race or something like that, where you be around really loud cars, or you go to a concert and spend, let's say, 3 hours at the concert, and you could easily end up in a scenario where you were like 400% of your daily dosage. And I would not be shocked if I've had 200 to 400% of my daily dosage when I've gone, for instance, to the racetracks.
it's like having a big dessert, right? If you
Yeah,
go to a restaurant and you eat a big piece of tiramisu, you better not have any empty calories for like the next day.
right, because you've eaten up all your calories. You're done. So you that's what causes hearing damage over the long term.
Well, and another thing too, for anybody that's in the medical profession, I have a buddy that's a dentist, and he does the drill 7, 8 hours a day, and
Yeah.
he told me that he has permanent hearing damage in the ear where the drill is, and it's in the probably in the 2 or 3 kilohertz range. But he went to an audiologist, and they
Hmm.
found he's got hearing loss, and this is from a drill that's not that loud. I mean, when you go to the dentist and you hear the drill, it's what, maybe 70 dB, 60 dB, something like that, but it's being exposed to that all day long. And I don't think at the time he was wearing hearing protection. He might be now.
So I think that brings us really to this point, though. What can we do? And it's, we're hearing protection, stupid. WHPS. It'll be our new thing. Um, so they actually make these things called concert earplugs. I think you, Gene, maybe the first person to turn me on to this. And I thought that they were expensive. There are high end, like we'll call them audiophile versions of these that do tend to cost a little bit more. But there's
Yeah.
cheap ones. Amazon has them for I think they're like $10 or $15, and I've got both. To be honest, there isn't a big difference between the two. They both seem to work and they both seem to have a similar effect. Basically, they don't really change the frequency response that you hear, they just attenuate sound. So the idea is you go to a movie or a concert, you put these in, everything still sounds good. It just isn't as loud.
Yeah. So as opposed to if you go to like Walmart and you get those foam hearing plugs, they block out about 32 or 33 dB, but you have no high frequency hearing at all when you stick those in.
Right. Yeah. So this is a better option to go with this. And we do that because we want to protect hearing. And one of the things I think anyone who's been around this industry very much will tell you is that we make such a big deal about our equipment and good sound. And for those of your audience who are young, or at least young enough that they don't have any serious hearing protection, if you want to be able to continue to make those arguments in a legitimate way, to listen to music, to care about this stuff, you got to protect your hearing now. And I think my life lesson going through this is I really need to be better about it. And so I actually, after doing this whole study, I went and purchased a higher end pair of headphones that are those noise blocking headphones that are used in like machine shops, so that when we go out and do certain kinds of sound testing out in the fields, which sometimes exceed 130 decibels, I'm able to protect myself better. And in
Yeah.
general, plan to wear those concert earplugs more, and I actually carry them now around with me all the time just in case.
Well, the other thing I'd like to add to that too is if you find yourself in an environment where it's incredibly loud and you can't leave the environment, like a concert. If you go to a concert and you forget your hearing protection, the best thing I could tell you to do is go to the bathroom, get some toilet paper. Don't stick the dry toilet paper in your ears because it's going to do next to nothing. But if you could wet it, and I know it sounds disgusting, but if you could wet
Sounds
the
really
toilet
gross.
paper, it is gross, but it works. Wet the toilet paper, roll it up, stick it in your ears. You're going to get a decent amount of protection, not like you would with a foam tip, but at least you're going to have a fighting chance not to kill your ears that night.